What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So we are now fully 2 days into the World Junior Championships, and a lot of stuff has gone down. Clearly, last night's result, Canada versus Latvia, being the biggest thing, and we're definitely going to dive into that. But I thought, based on these 2 days, because I've watched a lot of these games, I thought that I would give out 7 takes that I have kind of come to based on these games. I'm not going to massively overreact to these games, because again, some teams have played 2 games, some teams have played 1. I'm not going to determine a team's future the rest of the tournament or a player's future for the rest of their career. But I think there's definitely some takeaways that we can do based on what has happened thus far. And up first to start it off, James Hagens might be just solidifying his spot at first overall based on how this tournament has gone down, not solely from his perspective. I'm not going to overreact to a 2-goal, 2-assist performance against Germany, although that was fantastic. He was arguably the United States best player, the best player on that line with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Burrell. His overall vision and patience for his age is just fantastic. He played great, but I think that it might honestly have more to do with what has happened to the other guys in this tournament that were contenders for going first overall. Matthew Schaefer, of course, last night against Latvia goes crashing into the net, crashing into the boards, and breaks his collarbone, probably going to be out 2 to 3 months, which puts him on a return of what would that be, like early March return to basically miss around 20 to 30 games of his draft year, on top of Porter Martone barely playing for Team Canada. He has 0 points in 2 games thus far, and in the most recent game, he only played 7 minutes and 13 seconds, which is the lowest out of any Canadian forward. So you got James Hagens looking like he's about to have a monster tournament. He was already having a very good draft year, on top of being, without a doubt, better than those guys, as well as Michael Misa in their draft year -1. If Hagens continues to ball out in this tournament and then finishes with like 50 points in 40 games, while Schaefer is limited to the rest of his OHL season, and Porter Martone doesn't step up in a big way against very good competition compared to maybe the OHL, I think James Hagens, it's definitely not going to be a lock by any stretch, but James Hagens goes from a guy that was kind of losing his lead. It was looking like those guys might be able to potentially overcome him for that first overall spot, to now him yet again being the heavy favorite. They're all great prospects. Things can definitely change, but especially with a guy like Matthew Schaefer, that his draft year -1 wasn't really that impressive, but him from Hlinka Gretzky Cup to now was really catching up to James Hagens, and I had him ahead of James Hagens. Teams might be a little bit weary considering it was only a 4-month stretch of excellence from Matthew Schaefer versus James Hagens. You have 2 full seasons of him being an absolute stud. Next take, Axel Sandin Pellikka looks like the absolute truth when looking at this guy in his first game against Slovakia. 3 goals and 1 assist. The way that this guy patrols the blue line is just able to find passing and shooting lanes for his teammates, especially shooting lanes. The way that he's able to get his shot off is so impressive. I fully expect it to translate to the NHL level, considering it's not just translating at the World Juniors level. He's been so productive at the SHL level. I had this guy as the second best player in this tournament, might arguably be the best player in this tournament. I had Ryan Leonard at number 1, and he's one of the best prospects in hockey. I personally had him at number 3. It's absolutely insane that he fell to 17th overall back in the 2023 draft, mainly just because he was kind of an undersized guy. But I think even defensively, he's looked pretty solid in this tournament. Monster game against Slovakia. Against Kazakhstan, he kind of just barely played, considering they went up by so much early. He ended up playing like 13 minutes a night. It's going to be very interesting to see. His side of the bracket is definitely easier than the Canadian-US side, so we might not see him go up against like a really strong side. He'll play Czechia, but him versus Canada or the United States is really going to be amazing to watch him play, and I'm really looking forward to it, because this guy is genuinely looking like the next great Swedish, maybe not great, but the next stud Swedish defenseman at the NHL level. My third take, Finland's fall off is becoming very evident. Yes, they won the gold medal in 2019, and I think they finished second in, 2022, when Mason McTavish had that insane play. But their overall production, I tweeted about it after the Canadian loss, their overall production of NHL talent the last couple of years, since 2018, has simply just been brutal. It has just been straight up ass for the most part. And of course, from 2013, they produced guys like Barkov, Rantanen, Hintz, Aho, Heiskanen, Saros, UPL. That was not sustainable. They were pumping out multiple elite players every single season. But when you look at it since 2018, it has been a barren wasteland for the most part. In 2018, Kakaniemi, of course, did not pan out, and he wasn't projected to be a top 5 pick. That was a reach, but still not even living up to like if he went 10th or 15th overall at this point. Rasmus Kupari also in that draft didn't really pan out. Capo Kakko, 2019, definitely busted. I think that you can blame the Rangers more than say like the Finnish system, but also Lassie Thompson and Ville Heinola, who spent multiple seasons in Finland after being drafted drafted, they have not turned into really anything at the NHL level. 2020, Anton Lundell has panned out. I'm not sure he's ever going to be like a star or an elite guy, but he's definitely looking like he's going to be a very good second line center. But he's without a doubt the best guy from 2018 to 2020 and 2021. They didn't have a single top 40 pick in that draft. And a guy in Aatu Räty we thought was going to arguably be the first overall pick in 2021 pre-COVID. His development kind of got fumbled. Maybe he can turn into a middle six forward, but not going to be anything special. 2022, more of the same. Brad Lambert fell similarly to Aatu Räty in his draft year playing in Finland, as well as Joakim Kamel, not really developing into much. Those guys look like just middle of the lineup players, as well as Yanni Niemann. 2023, no first round pick. Looks like none of those guys are going to turn into high level guys at this point. And then in 2024, I still really like Konsta Helenius, but he's probably not going to be a Barkov level guy. He's probably going to be more so of an Anton Lundell, very good second line center, low end first line center. It has just been such a trend the last 6 years from Finland. Again, you can't expect him to produce on the same level of Canada or the United States. There's far more players that play, youth players that play hockey. But when looking at it compared to Sweden, there's 45,000 kids that are registered in Finland to play hockey, 63,000 in Sweden. It's comparable. And Sweden has continued to pump out high level NHL talent like a Lucas Raymond, like a Leo Carlsson, a William Eklund, and Axel, Sandin, Pellikka. There is definitely some kind of development process that is failing these young Finnish players at this point. Maybe it's the larger ice. They're not playing a faster style of game. Maybe they're more so team oriented. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but then when they come over to the American and North American style of game, they don't have the offensive toolkit to develop into high level players. Yes, they can be solid middle six, two-way guys, but at this point, the Finnish talent has really dried up and just lacks that offensive creativity that we saw earlier on. I think something needs to change with the Finnish development system, but you guys can definitely let me know about that one. I really spieled on about that one. Next up, the fourth take. Cole Hutson is looking like his older brother in terms of an offensive stud. 5 assists in his first game against Germany. The way that he just dominates at the blue line with his edges, like Lane Hutson, is very impressive. Great passer, very creative player. We saw him go through the legs and that eventually lead to a goal. He's a special talent. And when looking at what he's doing at Boston University right now, he has 14 points, 16 games, not quite as productive as Lane Hutson, but Lane Hutson had one of the best freshman years ever by a defenseman. But still, guys that have done what they did in their junior career, U.S. national team career, and then doing their freshman season, they tend to pan out in terms of being at least good offense defensemen. Yes, there's some defensive concerns with Lane Hutson as well as Cole Hutson as well as with Lane Hutson at the NHL level at this point. But as long as he can be just below average defensively, I think Cole Hutson is going to be a very good second pair offensive defenseman for the Washington Capitals. Again, he's only a mid-second round pick. It's not like they used this massive draft capital on him. Him and Cole Yzerman, the two Cole Square, are playing very good at Boston University right now, and it's very refreshing to see them also play very good at the World Juniors at this point. Washington, you throw them on a pair with Matt Roy in like 2 to 3 years, and I think they have like a 40-ish point power play quarterback of the future for the Washington Capitals. Very encouraging if you're a Washington Capitals fan, watching Cole Hutson ball out. Another team that's very happy with one of their guys, one of their recent draftees, the Utah Hockey Club, might have their goaltender of the future with Michael Hrabal. When looking at him for Czechia, 25 out of 26 against Switzerland, balled out. Yes, it's Switzerland, but he had some highlight reel saves and just played very good. And when you look at what this guy's done at the NCAA level, 9-12 last year in his freshman year, 9-17 this year, looking like he's taking another step. And for the Utah Hockey Club, goaltending has been massively inconsistent the last 3 years. In 2023, Vejmelka was really good. Connor Ingram stunk. 2024, Connor Ingram was very good. Vejmelka stunk. This year, Vejmelka's very good. Connor Ingram stinks. They need a stable, reliable, consistent guy. And Michael Hrabal, who is already playing so good at the college level as well as the World Juniors right now, considering he has the absolute monster build of a number one goalie down the line at 6'3", 6'6", won't be ready for another 2 to 3 years for sure. But if this guy really pops with the young forwards that the Utah Hockey Club obviously has, their defense core, well, not special. Sergachev, Marino, Dursey are still in like their mid-20s, as well as having Simashev coming up. If Hrabal really hits, they could be a true contender come like 2028 to 2033. They have all the pieces, just need some of the prospects. Simashev and Hrabal is really going to make or break their rebuild, in my opinion. But right now, it's looking like more so they're going to make it instead of break it. Next up, Team Canada. Their old school roster management and coaching might cost them yet again, like in 2024. When looking at them, yes, they took care of Finland, but as I mentioned before, Finland is not the Finland of old, Finland in the 2010s, and they only scored 2 goals in the first 55 minutes of that game, and then clearly against Latvia, the offense was unacceptable. 2 goals on 57 shots. And yes, you might scream 57 shots. Most times they score 5, 6, 7 goals. And I think the coach, Dave Cameron, even said that. A lot of it was just kind of like perimeter soft shots. I watched the first 2 periods, and then I caught up on it this morning. Went to go see Nosferatu last night because I thought it was going to be a blowout game, and I ended up missing the 3rd period in overtime, but I rewatched it. And yeah, I mean, they peppered them with shots, but there just wasn't a ton of high danger chances. So when looking at this Team Canada, especially when you had the questionable roster management decisions that they obviously did in this process, decided to take more so 2023 guys that are 19 years old, that are more experienced two-way guys that haven't really dominated the CHL, like guys like Beckett Seneca, Andrew Crystal, Michael Hage, as well as, of course, the defense core was really shocking when Zane Parekh and Carter Yakimchuk didn't even get invited to the selection camp, and now they're not going to be on the team. They ended up going with Sawyer Minio with Matthew Schaefer going down with injury. They just really lack some offensive creativity, especially from the blue line, especially considering Oliver Bonk is on the top power play right now. He doesn't even quarterback the top power play in London. It's Sam Dickinson, I believe, yet Dave Cameron, for some reason, throws him in that role. And Sam Dickinson, speaking of Sam Dickinson, Oliver Bonk played 8 more minutes against Latvia than Sam Dickinson. It's just very confusing. Porter Martone, again, offensive beast, only playing 7 minutes a night. So yeah, some of the questionable roster decisions, as well as the coaching decisions that they've had, it's just very unfortunate. And it wasn't to this degree in 2024, but there definitely were some snubs with that team. And they ended up coming very short, losing in the quarterfinals. And it's looking like, although, again, they could still easily beat the United States, they could still easily win gold. It's just you look at the all-snub team. I might end up throwing that up right here. The all-snub team, you could argue, is just as good as the team that they have right now. They snubbed some massive players, and it is just unfortunate for Canadian fans, especially fans of teams like Calgary and Ottawa, who are probably pissed watching the game last night that their studs are not on this team. It's got to stop being this view of that we need these two-way players. It makes no sense, especially in the defense core with some of the guys that they named over Parekh and Yakimchuk. I just don't get it. At this level, I always say, like, the best defense is sometimes an offense. When you look at the talent gap, especially Latvia versus Canada, again, no disrespect to Latvia. They played great. They clutched up. The goalie was absolutely insane. But against a team like that, against a lot of inferior teams, the best defense is an offense. The best defense is keeping puck possession because you can dominate in terms of puck possession so much. I understand at the Four Nations level, maybe on your 4th line, instead of Cole Caulfield, you throw, even though he's playing horrible, like Chris Kreider, Vincent Trocheck there. But at this level, there is just such a talent gap. So just go with the best players. You don't have to galaxy brain it like Team Canada is. And as a result, it's looking very concerning compared to the United States team that, although defensively have a long way to go after allowing 4 goals to Germany, they have that pre-existing chemistry, and they did just take the best players that they possibly could, and they absolutely rolled with 10 goals against Germany. And then my final take, not exactly the hottest take of all time, but while Gavin McKenna might not be generational, he is definitely going to be worth tanking for in 2026. This guy is basically turned 17 a week ago, and he's being relied on to be Canada's best forward, and rightfully so, because he probably is Canada's best forward. It was ridiculous before the tournament when it came out that he was going to be playing on like the 4th line. That is absolutely nuts. But yeah, this guy's poise, hands, and he's a very slippery player. That's probably how I would best describe him. Is on full display, was especially on display with that first goal that he did, the very smooth hands that he has. And yeah, although he might not lead this team to greatness in this tournament, Macklin Celebrini couldn't lead the Canadians to gold or even a medal last year. It's not his fault. And he, at 17 years old, the fact that he's being relied on to play such a massive role, I'm gonna be honest, I don't watch a ton of full-length WHL games of Gavin McKenna against random teams, but I have been watching him, and I have been very impressed with what I see. Yes, you definitely want to see more out of him and more out of this Canadian team on the whole, but again, a draft year -1 guy to be playing such a massive role on this team and be relied on, and people are trying to say that he has to carry them. Like, even Bedard, again, didn't carry them in 2022. He had like 8 points in 7 games. Gavin McKenna is an absolute stud, and while not a generational talent, definitely is looking like a franchise level talent, and I cannot wait for the tankathon that is going to ensue next season. It's going to be interesting to see which teams are going to be in it, because he is looking like a true star, future NHL superstar, and rightfully so, based on his resume, based on him being arguably the best player of the WHL and arguably the best player on this Team Canada team, despite them having 2023 and 2024 as well as 2025 draft picks. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about these takeaways? Which ones am I far out on? Which ones do I agree with? And what do you think? Which ones do you agree with? And what do you think about this tournament? Who do you think is going to win? I think at this point, the Americans kind of got to be the favorite, as well as Sweden. It's like it's fully a three-headed race. I had Canada ahead to start after losing Matthew Schaefer and just the overall performance that they had. I'm not sure they're the favorite anymore, but let me know in the comments, what do you think? I'll be seeing the next one.